Welcome to Heal with Mushrooms, where we explore the healing power of fungi and the wisdom they carry. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any health decisions. And just a note, this podcast does not endorse or encourage the use of psychedelic substances by minors. All content is intended for adult audiences. Hello, and welcome to Heal with Mushrooms, your portal to the magical queendom of fungi. I'm Cassandra, your mushroom-obsessed guide. Today's guest embodies the quiet power of someone walking in true alignment with the earth, with science, and with healing. Dr. Anna Sitkoff is a naturopathic physician, a dedicated researcher, and a craftswoman of mushroom medicine. Her work bridges traditional knowledge and clinical rigor, rooted in a deep relationship with the fungi of the Pacific Northwest. She's the co-founder of Lucidum Medicinals and the author of the Medicinal Mushroom Chapter in the Textbook of Natural Medicine. But what I admire most is the grounded way she carries this work forward. For the women listening who feel that pull, the one that whispers, "There's more to healing than you've been taught," this episode is an invitation to explore how fungi might meet you there. Dr. Sitkoff, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Anna. So, you trained as a natural physician at Bastyr University, and you also were able to study the clinical world of mycology. How did those two worlds first converge for you, and what inspired you to pursue both?
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of in a layered way. Initially, my interest in mushrooms was kind of when I was a teenager, and I was interested in psychedelic mushrooms and really a lot of more of the like psilocybe species. And I had kind of my own healing journey with mushrooms, similar to a lot of women in our generation. I struggled with an eating disorder in high school, and when I mostly recovered from that, but I had an issue kind of understanding my hunger cues again.
Yeah.
And I had a trip with psilocybe mushrooms on the beach in Northern California, and it transformed something in me, like neurologically, where I was able to understand my hunger cues again. And that's something that I haven't really talked about before. I haven't written about it. I haven't really talked about it on a podcast before, but something that I know I've been thinking about more a lot lately. And that seems like an important part of my story to share. And especially when we're talking about women in mycology. And that's something that a lot of women go through. And I think that psilocybin and psilocybe mushrooms can be really helpful there. And so that was part of that journey. Kind of the more significant part perhaps was that around that same time, my father was going through chemotherapy for chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and his Chinese medical doctor actually recommended that he take a mushroom blend.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I know.
So cool.
And totally. And I had already been kind of deep in the world of nutrition. I was getting my bachelor's degree in nutrition, and I was studying herbal medicine at that time already as well. And I felt like, mushrooms hadn't really been talked about too much. It seemed like the herbalists who I had studied under didn't really talk about mushrooms. Mushrooms were taught about briefly in my nutrition education, but mostly just as a kind of nutritional component of food. And then so my interest was sparked with both of those things. And then I moved to the Pacific Northwest, where, as you know, mushrooms are in abundance. We're surrounded by them. You can't walk 10 feet without seeing some kind of mushroom.
We're so blessed.
We are so blessed with the mushrooms here. Yeah. And when I moved here, I started working at Dandelion Botanical Company, which is an apothecary in Ballard in Seattle. It's now in Sequim. And while working there, I was also really immersed in the world of alchemy and plant medicine, and I was doing a lot of wild crafting, and that was kind of my whole world at that time. But the kind of mushroom whisper never left.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start teaching classes at the apothecary, and I just wanted to know so much more about mushrooms. And so I started to do a lot more research. I started my Reishi and Roses blog, mostly with the intention of kind of helping myself learn. That blog has since turned into a good education source for a lot more than just myself. But it was also supposed to be a resource for the people who were coming to my classes, so they could just like refer back to the blog if they forgot something that I said or didn't take notes or something like that. But that teaching those classes further kind of inspired and deepened my love and my relationship with the mushrooms, and especially when those medicinal mushroom classes were held like out in the forest. That was kind of my favorite, just going out in the forest, teaching people how to harvest and identify the medicinal mushrooms, teaching people how to make medicine with them. That's another kind of had always been a big interest of mine, was these like different extraction methods, kind of how to really get the most out of the mushrooms and kind of get the essence. And so with all of that, I really just had amazing mentors that inspired me at each step along the way. And Kachi, who owns Dandelion Botanical Company, she said to me, Anna, I think that you won't be stimulated quite enough if you didn't go to medical school. If you didn't have like more, really more control over like every step of the knowledge that you're getting and what you're able to provide for people. And I really thought, I was like, I'll be an herbalist. I'll continue to teach mushroom classes. And I'm just so glad that I didn't stop there and that I did go to medical school, because I think going to medical school helped me understand how mushrooms and herbs work on like a whole other physiological level. And now as a doctor, I'm so glad that I get to prescribe these things and order the labs and be so involved in my patients' medical care. And so it's been kind of a pretty linear journey when I think about it, but all of these things have kind of combined to where I am today.
Wow, I'm super curious about your catalyst moment of having psilocybin mushrooms actually start to restructure your hunger response. I didn't necessarily struggle with an eating disorder, but I struggled with not being able to gain weight and having it be a frustrating part of my experience, where doctors wouldn't recognize that as an issue and told me that I was fine. And most people wish that they had my problem, which also is very psychologically harmful to a young child who's trying to understand themselves and their body. So I wonder if that had any relationship to me healing more of my body relationship, because I always like to take my magic mushrooms with a chocolate chip cookie. There was some there was something extra magic about it that I just was very happy about, having like a chocolate chip cookie in one hand and magic mushrooms in the other, and then eating them together. And like that little bit of chocolate, I think, helped the serotonin response, and it just really made me feel great.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I'm just kind of waiting for that clinical trial to come around for using psilocybin for eating disorders, because I think that that's like this whole world that should be explored and could really be beneficial there.
Well, any ladies listening who have a desire to look into a subject, this is one that could be explored and definitely could benefit women if we find some positive research around having our neural pathways restructured so that we can have better hunger responses. That's really cool research.
Yeah, definitely.
So I encourage someone, look into that, get inspired. So let's talk about education a little bit more, because you seem to have a really cool linear journey, but other people might be coming at this from maybe having a little bit of a background in science, a little bit of a background in something else. Do you know of any programs for women who are thinking about entering clinical mycology that you could recommend?
I don't know of any specific programs. And I think as far as like the word clinical mycology is, like, if we break that down, so are we looking at how to use mushrooms as medicine and prescribe them or recommend them to people as medicine and kind of like understand them on a level where we know enough to recommend them for specific conditions and situations? I think that there needs to be some kind of deeper background in either in medicine. So I mean, I recommend, if people have the resources to go to naturopathic medical school, it is a huge time and monetary investment, and that's not accessible to everyone. But that would be kind of like the number one recommendation. And then otherwise, I know that the Fungi Academy, I think that they have some good resources. I'm not familiar with their total kind of like the kind of classes that they teach, but I'm pretty sure that they've got some resources. I think that for me, what was helpful is that I already kind of had a background as an herbalist, and then it was really the mentors that I met along the way that helped me. And otherwise, a lot of what I know about mushrooms and using mushrooms medicinally is a lot of just being self-taught and like deep motivation and some good genes that help me obsess about things.
Nice.
Some like deep focus obsession genes, which I think is kind of necessary for any kind of expertise in a subject. But yeah, I mean, I am not aware of any specific programs in clinical mycology.
Okay.
Are you?
Well, I thought Bastyr had a bachelor's in a form of like mycology that had a clinical aspect where you did research.
So Bastyr has a program in clinical herbalism.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you can study some mycology in that program.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any programs that I'm aware of, it's all going to be herbalism focused, and you can just hope that there's a mycology component there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was really lucky when I attended classes at UC Santa Cruz. I had people who were passionate enough to do mycology classes. So I got to do intro to mycology classes and some medicinal mushroom things and like play around with permaculture in the garden of making shiitake logs out in nature. Nice. We did all sorts of things and it was rad.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I mean, even in the naturopathic medical program, it's like there's very little information about medicinal mushrooms generally. It's like I am the one now that like I didn't do it last year, but the last like 3 or 4 years, I do like one course for the graduating naturopathic medical students. Mm-hmm. That's like, and by one course, I mean one lecture about medicinal mushrooms.
One lecture.
And then sometimes they're included. I mean, there's like a huge herbal medicine curriculum in naturopathic medical school. And mushrooms are like somewhat included there, but really not nearly as much as they should be. And that's another thing that really inspired me to form my business was that it seemed like while I was in medical school and while I was in the Bastyr clinic doing my clinical rounds, the practitioners didn't really know how to use mushrooms, and they didn't know which mushrooms to choose or which kind of formulations or which products. And I was like, what is happening? Like, why is my clinical supervisor asking me what product they should use for the patient? Like, why don't they know that? And and so I think that's just like a giant hole in education, honestly. And like for me, I was able to do a lot of self-research and teach myself a lot of things and have great mentors. And I wish that I had a great resource for the people and the women out there who are looking to really focus in this. And I just don't know of one specifically because I kind of grabbed from a lot of different places.
Well, I do like your recommendation of the Fungi Academy, and shout out to them for their Sacred Mycology Summit that's coming up that you're going to be featured on very soon. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And they do have really good courses. So absolutely. I'll put it in the show notes. Recommend checking them out. They have psychedelic integration. They have mycology 101 and fungal ecology and a few others. And
Cool.
in-person workshops that people can also go down to Guatemala if they want to study.
And I would say too that the North American Mycological Association, NAMA, so they have a committee called it's the Medicinal Mushroom Committee of the North American Mycological Association, which I'm a member of. And we are a committee of, I think there's like 5 or 6 of us, and we meet once a month, and we're all always working on some kind of educational material that we publish in the Mycofile, which is a cool magazine that
I've seen it. It's cool.
That NAMA puts out. Yeah, that a lot of people aren't totally aware of. So I really recommend people go to the NAMA website and kind of look at their resources there. And then also, being part of your local NAMA offshoot. So it's like the Puget Sound Mycological Society or your local mycological society. There's often resources there as well.
Yeah, shout out to Puget Sound Mycological Society, strongest, possibly largest in the country at like 2,200 strong members. It's
impressive.
It's impressive.
Yeah, us Pacific Northwesterners just obsessed with the mushrooms.
So that's a great recommendation. I also am a member of my other local one, Snohomish County Mycological Society. So they go under names similar to that, like Mycological Association, Society, Mushroom Club, Forays. These are keywords you could look for in your area to see if there are people actively going on mushroom trips and maybe offering classes or other events that you could plug into.
Yeah.
So let's chat a little bit about Lucidum Medicinals, which I am super curious about because I remember honestly when you formed the company years ago and I saw you launching it, and if my memory served me correct, you were using more oyster mushrooms as part of the base of the formulas. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really into oyster mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Why do you geek out on oyster mushrooms? What should people know?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. So the first is that oyster mushrooms are one of the mushrooms that are highest in a certain compound called ergothioneine. Ergothioneine is a really cool amino acid that has a strong antioxidant effect, and it's really super bioavailable. So bioavailable just meaning that when you eat the mushroom, almost 100% of the ergothioneine that's in the mushroom is absorbed into the bloodstream and usable. And our cells that take it up can also store it for long periods of time and use it kind of as a backup system in cases of high oxidative stress. So if you ate a bunch of oyster mushroom now, and then, a month from now, you were subjected to more environmental toxins or forest fire or some exposure like that, then you have this kind of backup antioxidant system. And it works kind of as a backup to glutathione and looks similar to glutathione molecularly. And for those that don't know, glutathione is like one of our main antioxidant support molecules.
They call it the master antioxidant molecule, something like that. Ergothioneine or glutathione,
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. But so ergothioneine is, cool for that reason. And I think that there's also a lot of really interesting kind of preclinical research about using ergothioneine to prevent preeclampsia, which is a condition that some women get in pregnancy that comes it's composed of really high blood pressure, protein in the urine. It's really driven by mitochondrial dysfunction and oxidative stress, and having anything that can prevent that. Right now, it's like the main prevention that is prescribed is like low dose aspirin, and ergothioneine is totally safe to be taken during pregnancy and breastfeeding and preconception. And so I'm so curious to see where that research is going, and just one more reason why ergothioneine is awesome. And then for oyster mushroom too, there's a lot of research on pleurin, which is a polysaccharide derived from oyster mushroom. And pleurin is really helpful for allergic disease and respiratory illness. And so I'm a big fan of oyster mushroom. I think it's really not used enough, not talked about enough. It's kind of like this edible mushroom that most people don't even think about as being a significant medicinal, but I love it. And the Pleurotus ostratus, and then also the golden oyster and king oyster are also all gonna have some pretty significant amounts of ergothioneine and have those medicinal benefits.
Cool. Did you happen to test if the pink oyster mushrooms have a high quantity of it?
I'm not sure, but I would say likely.
Cool. When I lived out on Maui for a few years, and I helped work at a permaculture farm where I did pink oyster mushroom cultivation because they did better with the high heat temperatures that we had, and it was basically like an indoor-outdoor grow, so they didn't have any protection from the elements in that way of like how hot it got. And it was so fun to watch them grow. They were the most beautiful mushrooms, like such a feminine touch. But the second you cook them, they turn kind of like normal oysters. They lose their pink, but they're so pretty when they're growing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that was a really fun experience. So what are you currently up to, Anna? Are there any projects or offerings for the community, ways that people can maybe like touch in with you and get to know you a little better?
Well, currently I don't have a lot of other projects happening. Lucidum Medicinals is always, we're working on doing some like reformulating right now, which is taking a good amount of time and energy, and something that I'm very excited about. And maybe we'll come out with even a new formula in the next year. And I am a primary care doctor, and so a lot of my time is kind of just practicing medicine and doing that for my patients. I'm also a new mother, and so my time is quite filled. But when I feel inspired and motivated about something in the mushroom world, I often write a big paper about it. Most recently, I just finished a project on chitin. And I think that that's another kind of interesting aspect. If people want to dive into chitin, that blog post, I think I just posted on my Dr. Anna Sitkoff website. I don't think I put it on the Reishi and Roses yet. I'm kind of slowly transferring the Reishi and Roses to the Dr. Anna Sitkoff website. But yeah, I can also speak a little bit about chitin and that what I ended up like nerding out about, because I think chitin, similar to ergothioneine or oyster mushroom, is like not talked about too much and just seen as like another kind of typical part of a mushroom that doesn't have value.
I mean, I would honestly like to know, because personally, I don't think of it as bad, but I think of it as like part of the reason that people have sometimes a bad psychedelic experience is they're not breaking that down, and then they're bothered by it somehow. So if you have insight into, like, is it gastrointestinal upset? Is it a lining issue? Like, what's going on? Let me know.
It's a few things. So most people have two enzymes that can break down chitin. Okay. So we have a gastric chitinase, and then we also have a chitinase that's made by white blood cells. If you don't have those enzymes and you can't break it down, you're more likely to have a negative response to chitin. So the chitin molecule, when it's in its full form, or if it's not broken down all the way, it can trigger an allergic response and gastrointestinal discomfort. There's a good percentage of the population that actually doesn't make those enzymes. So 6% doesn't make the enzymes, and then 30% of the population has some kind of alteration in enzyme function where it's not going to like work well. And so when people consume mushrooms and they have one of those poor responses, gastrointestinal discomfort or an allergic response, it's usually because those enzymes either aren't working completely or they just don't have the enzymes. But if you do have the enzymes, chitin can be a really wonderful kind of part of the medicinal value of mushrooms. So chitin's broken down into its derivative chitosan. And chitosan, when it's in those, it's basically chitin in like smaller molecules, can actually help with the intestinal lining and is important for gastrointestinal health. It feeds the good gut bacteria. It's important for, it can help to repair leaky gut or intestinal permeability. So it's totally dependent on if you make the enzymes or not, like what your response to chitin will be. But yeah, so
is there a way that like a person could like play with testing that in their body, or is it just like
the
because
only
that's
way
not
to,
a normal test that the doctor's going to come back and tell you with your blood work?
No. I'd say the only way to know is if you respond differently to a liquid extract than you do to a powder. That's a pretty good way to know. Chitin is not extracted in water, alcohol, acid. You're not going to be able to extract it in really any solution. And so if you have like a tincture, dual extract, triple extract, there's not going to be any chitin in there. And so if you don't have a negative response to that, but then you take just a powdered mushroom, or you have an issue with eating mushrooms, then you'll know it's likely a chitin issue more than anything else.
That makes sense. So people can, they can experiment with that. Like go check out some reishi tincture and then try some reishi powder in your coffee. See if you have a reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, that's fun. You said you're a new mom. How is having a child and being mushroom obsessed? Is that a fun meeting of the worlds for our listeners who are also curious about how to get their kids into the world of mushrooms at a young age?
It is so fun. Yeah. Avi has little mushrooms painted all around his nursery. And so he's just like always pointing at them. Something that you are probably familiar with as being a mushroom obsessed person is that people just gift you a lot of mushroom stuff.
Yes.
And so basically like half of our children's books are all mushroom themed. And some of them are awesome. Some of them are kind of weird. But yeah, Avi loves his mushroom books and he's getting so good at his mushroom ID. And I'm like, okay, well now we're at a point where like, you know what a general mushroom looks like. Mm-hmm. So we're moving into, okay, this is Amanita. This is a bolete.
Yes.
And I mean, he's 15 months, but he's going to be an excellent at mushroom ID. Yeah.
Teach him young. Yeah. Totally. We don't need screens. We just need mushrooms and books, people. Okay.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. He loves the mushrooms. And I think, and we go on a walk every morning and I always point out the mushrooms that are growing and I think he loves it. And he's also probably like, it'll be interesting for him to grow up and go to other people's houses and realize that not every family has an obsession with mushrooms. He'll be like, where are all the mushrooms?
Oh, yeah. Unless he becomes friends with my future children, and then he'll be like, oh, there are more families like my mom's. Yeah. Yes, okay. We got this. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I love mushroom pottery. I have like a secret obsession with the like 1970s, 80s mushroom pottery series that like Sears and other people used to come out with.
Yeah.
And I just wish we could like bring that back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Whenever I see that at a thrift store or something, I get excited too.
Yeah. So that's one thing I love is that mushrooms, they have taken over society. And I have been told recently by a lot of people that they're seeing more mushroom clothing, they're seeing more mushroom products, and they're seeing this like explosion of mushroom consciousness. And I've been waiting for this, so I'm pretty excited. It's also nice, like you said, people gift you more mushroom things because there's more mushroom things they can buy you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mushrooms are definitely really good at making more of themselves, right? It's like they kind of inoculate us all with they're just like so intriguing. And then people end up growing more mushrooms, taking more mushrooms. So more and more mushrooms are being grown. And I don't doubt that mushrooms might take over the world at some point. It's like, it's already happening.
Totally. Oh, so one interesting thing I've been seeing that I don't know if you've seen it yet. There's 2 new ways of introducing mushrooms into people's systems. And I'm not sure about the delivery and the uptake, but it's fascinating me. One is a flow system where they're making a type of like almost under the tongue absorbable cordyceps, absorbable lion's mane. And they're saying that it can pass through and enter into the body in a similar way as like maybe medications might enter through our under the tongue receptors. And I'm like, I'm not sure if mushrooms can cross those barriers, but I'd like to see more research. So
yeah, it also doesn't totally make sense on like the mechanism of action. Like a lot of mushrooms need to interact with the immune cells in the intestinal lining.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm not totally convinced that that's like superior to taking mushrooms just internally, but I'm curious to see what happens with that as well.
Yeah, they were claiming that basically like, you know, you would have a quicker experience of noticing the cordyceps in your system. And I was like, that maybe could be testable. I could play with that and see, do I notice this at any increased rate versus a tincture or something else?
Yeah.
But it's going to get really interesting with the world of like what people can do. The other one that I saw that I haven't seen as much recently, but they were talking about using basically mycelium pearls. So growing the mycelium into little pearls that were super concentrated with the mycelium's benefits that would be otherwise dried out in a dried product. And because it was saved in this pearl structure, they were going to be able to like kind of keep it moist. And I'm like, that's a really interesting idea. Like if that was true and stabilized, interesting. Like, cause then we could access more of the beneficial compounds in like the lion's mane mycelium or things like that. So I'm so curious.
I'm very curious too. I'll have to look into both of those things. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm actually just going to make a note of that to remember. Mycelium pearls. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, the future of mushrooms, I think it's really open right now. Like, there's a lot of minds that are working towards thinking about ways that we can interact with them or move them into our bodies in healthy ways and make it so that people don't have stomach and upset from it, which I thought that was really cool that you did research on it. You told me a bunch of words that I don't know that I need to now go listen and like research because I'm curious. Like, that wasn't something I had considered, that enzyme reactions would be the reason that some people would have a stomach upset. I thought it was more that people were basically like almost like what they would say an insect's cell would be doing to you, like kind of like scratching the cell lining or causing like an irritation.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't totally make sense.
Yeah. So I'm glad you clarified that for me because I kind of had it different in my mind. I was like, oh, maybe it's like the mushrooms, their structure is so strong that it like kind of like can't get it through and it maybe like irritates it. But if it's more of an enzymatic thing that it needs to be broken down.
Yeah. And so just to clarify a little bit more, because, you know, you mentioned the insect. So insect exoskeletons are also made up of chitin. And so people who don't have those enzymes to break down the chitin are probably going to have a similar effect if they're eating like powdered insects or some kind of cricket or something like that, which is not, I know it sounds crazy in this country, but most people do actually eat insects around the world. And the response to the undigested chitin, rather than it being like irritating to the intestinal lining, is going to be more of a allergic immune response that causes the symptoms. It stimulates more allergy. And so that's like why most people are also like allergic to dust mites. It's actually the chitin in the dust mites that triggers allergy. Yeah.
So how does it trigger the allergy response through the gut lining? Is it then like sending a system to the immune, like a signal to the immune system that says, I can't process this? So it's like histamine response?
Or... Yeah. So in our gut lining, we have a lot of different immune cells, like a lot. And so the reaction to the chitin is a trigger in the IgE response or the histamine response.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot, there's like a whole immunological mechanism that I could get into that I think would just kind of be boring for most people. But the basics is that it's sensed by the immune system, and the immune system response is that it triggers, histamine mast cell degradation response.
Okay, cool. So for people who are geeking out with us, what we're talking about is when consuming a mushroom and having it in your stomach, there's a lot of immune cells that can actually interact with that mushroom. And when cells are accepted, they're going to send a message that the body will process the chitin down. But if there's a issue in the response, then it's going to send a allergic response message and say like, kind of like, I don't like this.
Yeah, well, it's dependent on a lot of things. It's
Okay.
also dependent on like how far broken down the chitin is. Most of the chitin should be broken down in the stomach. So it's like your stomach is making stomach acid and other digestive enzymes. One of those enzymes is chitinase, the enzyme that breaks down chitin. But if it doesn't have the chitinase, then it'll enter into the intestines in a mostly intact form, and that's what will trigger more of an allergic response or an inflammatory response, and digestive issues with people.
I mean, this is so fascinating for me, honestly, because after having years of friends trip on psychedelic mushrooms and not understanding why some people are like completely like put down by it and other people are like, this is fine, I could eat, more grams and I'm totally fine.
Well, and that could also have to do with like their other like kind of enzyme processes that are like breaking down the psilocybin, and like how quickly that's broken down. And I think there's a lot more involved there, but chitin could definitely be a part of it.
Well, yeah, I've been experimenting with lemon tech, and when you do lemon tech, you basically grind up a mushroom, put it into a glass container, add lemon juice on top that extracts out what I want, usually the psilocybin, but it does start to break it down into the psilocin quite quickly, from what I understand. If you take lemon tech, the extraction of the lemon juice with the psilocybin, there's no chitin in that product or that final result. So then I don't see any stomach upset ever if I do it like that.
You would only be getting chitin if you're eating the whole mushroom.
Yeah. So that's one way that people can, if they want to experiment, you could try lemon tech one day with your mushrooms and try non-lemon tech with your mushrooms and also see how your body responds to that. Fun ways we can play.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. It's like it would have to do with like the MAO and the monoamine oxidase enzyme, and like some people, if they have like if that enzyme is working differently in their system, which they might know if they respond also poorly or differently to like antidepressants or other kind of like psychoactive medications, then that could also be playing a role if it's not the chitin. But this is like a whole rabbit hole that
but one that people should know about.
Definitely.
There's lots of things to know about the world of mushrooms and mycology and the way that mushrooms interact with our body, our ecologies, and everything in between. And you all are going to be individuals. So always remember, you are one of one when you're doing an experiment, that your results may not be the same as someone else's results.
Yes. Yeah.
So one other thing I really wanted to touch on, because I am a woman and you are a woman, is do you see any ways that mushrooms can specifically support women with maybe our hormones, like through a hormonal transition, from, say, women who are maybe coming off of birth control and trying to get their cycle back? That's one area that I know a lot of like the younger generation is really working through right now. So any ideas on mushrooms and helping with fertility or hormonal transition?
Yeah, I think that mushrooms definitely have that like moon/womb energy, and there's so much there that can help women through many types of transitions: hormonal, psychological, childbirth, death, dying, like kind of all of the above. Especially the main mushrooms I think about are going to be Reishi and Maitake for hormonal transitions. For getting off of birth control, it's common that it'll take at least 3 months for most people for their hormones to kind of get back to normal. And Maitake might be able to help with regulating your normal ovulation cycle again. The main mechanism of action of Maitake helping with that is actually through blood sugar regulation and helping to kind of decrease insulin resistance. But that's also just a really common issue these days. I feel like there's more and more people diagnosed with PCOS, and one of the most common treatment recommendations is to just go on hormonal birth control. And so a lot of people that have PCOS that were, put on hormonal birth control at like age 15, which is way too common.
Yeah.
They're trying to get off of it in their 20s because they want to get pregnant or they just want a different approach. And insulin resistance is like a part of their picture of why there was ovulation issues in the first place. And so Maitake can be very helpful there. Reishi mushroom can also be really helpful for hormonal transitions and PCOS specifically. With birth control, when you're coming off of birth control, there can be a lot of issues with testosterone levels as well. You can either have too much or too little. And with PCOS specifically, there tends to be too much. And reishi can inhibit the enzyme that converts testosterone into a more potent testosterone called dihydrotestosterone via the enzyme 5-alpha reductase. And so when you're even partially inhibiting that enzyme, you're going to have less of that potent testosterone and less testosterone dominant issues like PCOS or anovulation. So I like those combos, Maitake and Reishi. And then also just, I think Reishi as far as nervous system support goes, and kind of PMS, PMDD, any kind of emotional dysregulation that's associated with hormonal changes. Reishi is so wonderful at just nourishing the spirit and helping both with the associated fatigue and also insomnia that can come. Reishi and all mushrooms really have this kind of amphoteric effect where they kind of do what our body needs. And it's not going to be sedating if you take it in the morning. In fact, it'll be energizing. But if you take it at night, it tends to kind of help be more relaxing and help you get a good night's sleep.
Well, you said a lot of really interesting things right there. One, maitake is delicious. I highly recommend people eat maitake regularly. Maitake and oyster mushrooms also, you can eat those two mushrooms together for a supercharged effect. Like,
yes,
get it together, people.
Yeah, just eat your mushrooms. It doesn't have to be a fancy extract.
Yeah. Honestly, mycology, cooking with mushrooms, is such a fun little side hobby for people to get into. Like, change up your week, try a mushroom each week. But what also struck me as super, I'd never thought about that, is you mentioned the effect that reishi could have on testosterone. Now, for our possible male listeners, is that something they should be aware of, or is it not going to affect them in the same way?
It's not going to decrease normal testosterone levels. If anything, it could be helpful if they have like benign prostate hyperplasia. So it's just like an enlargement of the prostate that happens with most men as they age that ends up with a lot of urinary issues. It's also like what causes that dihydrotestosterone is also what causes a lot of the like male pattern baldness. And so the main medications that are used to treat those conditions are inhibiting that enzyme 5-alpha reductase. And so reishi is not going to be as strong as the medications, but it will slightly inhibit that enzyme and can be helpful. And if you're looking for a more natural approach, it might be enough to kind of stop further growth of prostate enlargement, but it's not going to help bring prostate back down into its normal size. And yeah, it's really, men out there, just like, don't worry about reishi lowering your testosterone levels. And if you're worried about it, take it with some cordyceps, and I'm sure it'll just like balance each other out.
Oh my God. I love it. And honestly, men, it's fine. Reishi, it's not going to lower your testosterone. It's going to help you relax though. And it's overall better for focus if you do take it with some cordyceps. So why not double dose?
Yeah.
I did actually see recently, it was either your Facebook or your Instagram story. You were mentioning that you don't want to combine too many mushrooms together in a formulation. So like maybe a popular formula that we all know of that has 7 mushrooms, that might be too many. Are there reasons why you would recommend, say, people maybe try 1 to 3 at a time, or keep it in like a harmonious state instead of trying to do every single medicinal mushroom every single day?
Yeah, I think that it depends what you're taking it for.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, more than 5 mushrooms is just completely unnecessary. When you take 3 mushrooms in a formula, it's going to have a synergistic impact on the immune system. It's going to have a stronger immune supportive benefit than just taking one individual mushroom. But taking more than 5, I think, ends up diluting each individual mushroom's medicinal components. It's like there's no way that you can be taking a 500 milligram capsule and getting enough of each individual mushroom to really kind of benefit from that specific kind of polysaccharide or the terpenes in the reishi. It's like it's going to be so diluted if there's too many mushrooms in a formula. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's similar with herbalism, right? You don't want your formula to have a million things going on, sending your body too many signals, because it's confusing to our body. So, okay. So people are, if they're looking for medicinal products, they can start with one. They could play with having 3 at a time and see how that works for them. And then they would probably want to max out with no more than 5 in any given product.
Yeah. And I think it's like at a certain point, you're just kind of, it's like there is like a dose response curve where it's like 9 grams a day is not better than 3 grams a day. But 3 grams a day is better than 1 gram a day. So it's like if you're taking a bunch of different mushrooms multiple times a day, at a certain point, it's just like not really going to be having much of an additional impact. It'll just be expensive or, I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So speaking of something, I've always been curious, and maybe you have a better insight. If you take mushrooms with either, say, caffeine or coffee, does it impact the way that they interact with our system?
I don't think so. I think that the theory there is that, for example, so reishi mushroom has small amounts of adenosine.
Mm-hmm.
Caffeine is a adenosine receptor antagonist. That's like how it works basically and how it gives you energy. Adenosine is like kind of, you can think of it as like a sleepy neurotransmitter. Like when you're feeling really tired at night and you feel that pressure, that's like an adenosine pressure. And so in the morning when you drink coffee, it's blocking the adenosine receptor, and so the adenosine can't bind, so you no longer feel those sedating effects of the adenosine. I think the idea that some people say is like if you have a little bit of adenosine like with in the form of like a mushroom, then you're not going to feel as like wired with the coffee or the caffeine, and that just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah.
Because the caffeine's blocking the receptor. And so even if you have adenosine, if you're drinking it in mushroom form, like it's still not going to bind, and you have enough in your system that if it was going to bind, it would. So that doesn't really make sense to me. I think honestly that a lot of the benefit that people see with the combination of mushrooms and coffee is placebo. And
interesting.
That it's like having coffee by itself is like an amazing stimulant and an antidepressant. And it's like coffee is strong medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, yeah, if you're looking to feel the effects of the mushrooms and not the coffee, then you should see what it's like to just take the mushrooms by themselves first. I feel suspicious of the added benefit being like an actual physiological real thing.
Yeah.
But I'm very open for people to argue that.
I mean, I'm curious. I want to see what people do with it, because I do think that there's some exciting things that can be found in relation of like certain interactions that we could find between medicinal mushrooms and nootropics, or medicinal mushrooms and other stimulants, or other things that like the synergistic effect might be like revolutionary. So also encouraging people study that if it's like something of interest to you, because it's a really cool world out there right now with the availability that we have to larger quantities of medicinal mushrooms that are made in better and better ways. So I for one am excited to see like how we can keep expanding our ways of using mushrooms in healing ways that are also unique and fun and gonna drive humanity to be more creative. So I see a lot of just like opportunity out there for people who want to start mushroom companies and do things. And I'm so impressed with your company and everything that you've been doing over the years. How long has Lucidum Medicinals been operating?
We started like during COVID, so about 5 years. Yeah. And initially the focus was really just kind of direct to practitioner, and we wanted to have it be more clinically focused and be available to practitioners to prescribe to their patients and available in dispensaries. And I think we soon realized that that was actually like not the route that made the most sense for us. And so now we're really focusing on just getting it out to the people. And it doesn't matter if it's prescribed by a practitioner or not. We just want people to benefit from the mushrooms. And so more direct to consumer. Okay.
So can people can they order the products directly from your website?
They can get them directly from lucidummedicinals.com. And I would love to offer a discount for your listeners.
Sure.
We can do like a special 20% discount code that they can use with their first purchase. Maybe you can do this in the show notes or something, but we can do 20% off with the code like Heal with Mushrooms, if that works for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. And what would you say is your favorite product that Lucidum Medicinals makes?
Oh, so we have an immune formula and a lung formula and a brain and nerves formula. And my favorite, it's a hard one to answer. I think either the immune formula or the lungs formula. It's hard, I often think about mushrooms as like from a body systems approach, and I think there's just so much overlap. It's like the lung formula is actually also a kidney formula and a reproductive formula. The immune formula is also a reproductive formula. And so it really kind of depends on what I'm using it for. But I think right now the lungs is like my favorite because it helps with kind of anything from traveling at high altitude. So if you're going backpacking or even just going to like be at high altitude for a long period of time, or if you have conditions like COPD or asthma, it can be really helpful. And then also for people who have like chronic kidney disease, reishi and cordyceps have really great research showing that they can help normalize kidney function. Cordyceps has even been found to help with people who have kidney transplants, that they are able to take the transplant better, even with the immunosuppressive therapy that they're on. And so, I think the lungs formula is like very dynamic. Also, I use it a lot for it's like endurance. If you're an athlete, or even if you're not an athlete and you're just experiencing some kind of like a lot of patients that I have some exertional fatigue issues. So it's like if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, or if you have any kind of like post-viral illness like long COVID, there's a big component there of kind of exercise intolerance, and that's often due to like mitochondrial dysfunction. And the lung formula has reishi and cordyceps and oyster mushroom, and so you're getting the benefits of the ergothioneine and the oyster mushroom, in addition to the pleurin, that polysaccharide that I mentioned earlier that's great for kind of allergic and respiratory illness. And then the the terpenes from the reishi and the polysaccharides from the reishi, and the reishi cordyceps combo is kind of one of my favorites generally for endurance, and also helping to decrease any kind of like excess oxidative stress that comes with running for a long period of time, or biking for a long period of time, or any kind of like long endurance event like that. So I'd say the lungs formula. I love it.
You're speaking to me, because I recently made a commitment that like, I was like, I hate running, but I'm going to run a half marathon this year. Like something I would never do, but here I go. So it sounds like I should take the lung formula while I'm training.
Try it. Let me know how it goes. What half marathon are you going to do?
Okay. It sounds silly, but I saw Diplo was hosting a half marathon. So he's like a, DJ. and you run through Seattle, and then at the end there's a concert. So it's like a healthy concert, like encourages everyone to get the exercise on and then go celebrate. And I was like, that could actually be fun. Like I don't know what other type of marathon I would do. So when I saw it, I just got inspired, and I was like, I want to develop a different like part of myself, because I like weight training, I like yoga, I like all these like more like mellow activities. But running, it's been like difficult for me, and maybe it is like a side effect of having COVID years ago. I'm not really sure why my body does have some little fatigue that happens when I try, but it would be an awesome thing to add into my system to try out your lung formula and give you some feedback on it, because I will absolutely be testing myself and pushing myself to the limits over the next few months to train, because right now I can barely do a mile. So if I think I'm going to do a half marathon, we got some time, training to do.
When's the race?
September.
You can do it.
Yeah. That's why it's like, it's reasonable, but it's still a push. Like I got to actually do it. Because we're here, we got to get here.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's wrap it up with one final question. What does healing with mushrooms mean to you in a soul sense? Not as a clinician, but as a woman.
It's a wonderful question. I really like to think about and talk about mushrooms as the doulas of nature. And I think that women understand transformation and change on this whole other level, that, we go through our hormonal cycles. Some of us get to experience creating life within us and giving birth, and I think that kind of role of mushrooms in nature for transforming death into life directly translates into like what it means to be a woman, and our experience in the world and our experience in our bodies. And if we, like, the more in touch we are with kind of the magic of that, I think the easier those transitions are for us as women.
Wow, that was absolutely beautiful, and I love that, and I feel the same. Mushrooms are our allies in so many ways. We're so blessed to have them.
Yeah.
Aw, well, this has been such a magical and sweet, nourishing conversation, and I am overfilled with new information and things to go research and understand, and I'm so excited for that and so grateful for your time and your presence and everything that you bring to the medicinal mushroom community and beyond. And I encourage my listeners, check out the Sacred Fungi Summit coming up, when Anna's presentation should be live by the time you hear this episode next week. So thank you so much, Anna. And
Thanks,
I'm so blessed to have you here.
Yeah, it was really nice to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Heal with Mushrooms. The information in this episode is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult a licensed healthcare professional before making any changes to your wellness routine. We do not condone the use of illegal substances, nor do we encourage the use of psychedelics by minors. Any discussions involving entheogens are intended for adult audiences and are offered in the spirit of harm reduction and informed exploration. By listening, you acknowledge that you are solely responsible for your own health decisions. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the magical world of mushrooms. Just like mycelium, we're all interconnected, and together we can heal ourselves, our community, and the planet. If today's episode sparks something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Tag me on Instagram at healwithmushrooms, share your own mushroom stories, or send me a message. I'd love to connect. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who could use a little mushroom magic in their life. It truly helps this community grow. Until next time, keep foraging for wisdom, cooking up curiosity, and crafting your own elixirs of transformation. And remember, healing is happening one spore at a time. See you in the next episode. Bye.